que não apareceu nem questionários, nem avaliação, não apareceu correção, não. Tá dizendo que o questionário foi configurado para não exibir a nota, uma coisa assim.
Ah, então depois eu faço essa configuração para exibir, tá bom?
Tá,
E,
tá bom.
e aí eu faço o chá de revelação de vocês, chá de revelação de nota,
Tá bom.
tá bom? Mas por
Tá.
enquanto é até bom que vocês não saibam, que vocês se esforçam mais na parte de sintaxe.
Ai, meu Deus.
Basta saber que foi bem, né? Sabendo que foi bem já é um bom passo.
Sim, é um incentivo.
Sim, sim, sim. Para pelo menos tentar gostar da disciplina.
Não, eu gosto bastante dessa disciplina.
Ai, que bom, porque eu não.
Eu gosto. Eu já comentei muitas vezes com a
Eu,
Luana
eu
que eu
tenho um
gosto dessa
trauma.
disciplina.
Eu tenho um trauma com tudo que é muito
Ela
exato.
realmente me fala.
Eu gosto da análise do discurso, porque ela é interpretativa, né?
Uhum.
Isso assim pode ser assim, aponta para tal evidência, né? Nada é definitivo, nada é fechado. Quando é fechado, que nem a gente saiu, inclusive eu vou dirimir agora uma dúvida da aula passada, a gente saiu da aula passada com uma dúvida. É canônico, não é canônico? E agora, meu Deus, aí eu me lembro das minhas aulas de cálculo, né? Na faculdade de física. E
Você é
conceitualmente.
formada em física?
Não sou, mas eu fiz eu fiz 1 ano e meio, eu abandonei. Mas eu cheguei a reprovar cálculo 3 vezes. E aí eu fui para tutoria, né? Porque na Unicamp, na época, se você reprovasse a matéria 2 vezes, na terceira você tinha um professor tutor que te acompanhava para tentar te salvar, né? Você tinha um professor plantonista, né? E você era obrigado a ir à tutoria. E o professor, eu lembro que era o Johnny, um cara muito legal, professor da matemática aplicada. Ele falou assim: o show, o que é uma derivada? Aí eu falava: é uma equação, né, de uma reta que vai definir um ponto nessa reta tangente à parábola da equação de segundo grau, por exemplo. Beleza, o que é uma integral? Ah, não, é a área abaixo desse gráfico. Pergunta 3, por que você reprovou cálculo 2 vezes? Porque eu não sei fazer conta. Era bem
Meu
isso.
Deus.
Era bem isso. E aí eu larguei, né? Enfim.
Né?
Não
Depois
me
de 3
arrependo.
reprovações.
Não me arrependo, né? Bendito seletivo que eu fiz do cursinho popular. Tinha um cursinho popular do DCE. E eu fui tentar a vaga de professor de física. Aí não tinha de física, os caras olharam para mim e falaram: você fala inglês, não fala? Eu falo. Pois é, na Unicamp não tem letras em inglês, a gente está com dificuldade de arrumar um cara para dar aula de inglês. Você não quer, não? Ah, eu quero. Aí eu peguei, comecei a dar aula de inglês para cursinho, para vestibular. E assistir às aulas dos colegas já pensando em fazer letras, ou filosofia, ou sociais. E acabou que deu certo as letras. Mas
Que bom.
foi um período bom a física, eu aprendi bastante coisa. Acho que o conceito de física que eu melhor aprendi foi colisões. Porque tinha uma mesa de bilhar no centro acadêmico, né? E foi, foi a única coisa de física que eu aprendi foi colisões, transferência de energia, vetores, né? Porque você precisa
Meu
saber
Deus.
muito vetor para jogar sinuca, né? Vamos embora. So, good morning.
Right.
Last class, I left you with an exercise on canonical clauses. So I'll go back a little in the concept of canonical clauses before we solve the exercise. But we were left with a doubt, which I intend to solve it as we get to those exercises, okay? About if that clause was canonical or non-canonical. And just to give you a hint of the decision I have made when analyzing that sentence, I'd like to remember you that clauses are canonical, not sentences. And sometimes sentences are canonical because they are clausal sentences, which mean they have only one clause. So whenever you have two clauses, it's non-canonical, okay? Let's go back to the definition. Oops. Let's go back to the definition of canonical clauses from the properties of canonical clauses. I said oops because I thought you were seeing the answer key, but I'm not sharing the screen at all. So let me share the screen. Do you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
So let's remember, canonical clauses are declarative and positive, okay? Negatives are non-canonical. Now, Ushoa, what do you mean when you say declarative? Declarative means that interrogatives are non-canonical, so declaratives as opposition to interrogatives, imperatives, and exclamatives, okay? Declaratives means it's not a question. Now, what do you mean by positive? Positive, I mean the structure is positive. The structure of the clause is positive. Think of the clause, let me get Microsoft Word here. Think of something such as, I have no feelings at all. Is this sentence positive or negative? To know that, you should look at the verb form. Is the verb form affirming something or denying something? I have something. And something happens to be no feelings at all. This sentence, this clause, or this clausal sentence is positive. Okay? When you studied English, you probably heard about double negatives. Have you ever heard about double negatives and how ungrammatical they are? Is it right to say, for example, I don't have no friends? Is this correct? I mean, grammatically speaking, is this, let's not use correct and incorrect. Instead, let's use grammatical and ungrammatical. Is this grammatical?
It's incorrect, isn't it?
And what is the problem?
Double negatives?
Yeah, I have a negative particle here, not, do not, and I have another negative particle here in no. And what would be the correct version for this? I don't have any friends. Okay. Why? Because if I say I don't with a negative idea, I don't have no friends. So minus plus minus equals, okay? I denied something, and then I denied what I denied, so I affirmed. You get it? Grammatically speaking, it's like that, okay? So this sentence is negative. Why? Why do I say it's negative? Because the verbal structure has a not in it. There is a not attached right after the verb, the main verb. I do not have, and of course I should correct this, any friends. This sentence is negative. Now I can provide you another sentence with the exact same meaning, but with a positive structure. It's like, I have no friends. This sentence is positive. Why is it positive? Take a look at the verb. I have. I do not have the auxiliary verb do here and the not before the verb. You see, this sentence is positive, although the idea that it's passing is that it's something that I do not have, but the structure is something like, I have no friends. I have nothing. I cannot say I don't have nothing. If I don't have nothing, I have something. Do you get it? Or is it too much confusing your mind? Is it puzzling you? I don't have any. I have no. I don't have any is negative. I have no is positive. I have no friends, or I don't like uh, rock music. Is it positive or negative? I don't like rock music.
Negative.
It's negative. I like all kinds of music but rock. I like all kinds of music but rock. This is positive, okay? Because I'm telling you what I like, and then in the second clause, I put a but rock. So I use a coordinator, and a second clause to say rock is an exception, okay? Now, let's go back to the slide. So canonical clauses are both declarative and positive. So negatives are non-canonical. They are main clauses. And this is the key to solve our question from last class. Is this canonical, non-canonical? My God, I'm confused. They are main clauses. Subordinate clauses are never canonical, okay? Like she said that they knew the victim. That they knew the victim are non-canonical. Oh, teacher, but you said, she said this. Okay, but this, she said this, she said that, she said hello. This is canonical. She said hello. Canonical. She said that then you the victim is non-canonical because that is a coordinator that introduces a second clause, then you the victim. So there is coordination here, or subordination in this case, okay? They are non-coordinate. The two underlined clauses, either he missed the train or it is late. Why? What is the difference between coordination and subordination? Do you understand only she said? What is the immediate question you have here? She said. Ushua, what did she say? Yeah, it's like the affirmative sentence, like that political party robbed. Well, to rob is a verb that somebody robs something from someone. So we need a complement. This is subordination. Okay, so that political party robbed money from the people. We need complements. They robbed. They robbed what? Okay. Now, coordination. Take a look here. Forget the either or. He missed the train. Do you understand it? He missed the train. If I tell you he missed the train, do you understand the whole message?
Yes.
The train is late. Forget the pronoun, okay? We know that it refers back to the train. The train is late. Do you understand it?
Yes.
Now, when I put either or, what I'm doing is getting two clauses with independent meaning and put them in a relationship, in a kind of relationship in which either one thing or the other has happened. Okay, so canonical clauses are never subordinate and they are never coordinated. Okay, canonical clauses are active, as you learned. Okay, so passive voice is not a property of canonical clauses. Okay, they should always be active. The class was given by Professor Dino, non-canonical. Professor Dino gave the class canonical. Okay, so this is just a review of the properties. Okay, so canonical clauses, as I said, package information in the most basic way. The most basic way, as you should understand, is like subject, verb plus object. Okay. Of course, this order sometimes has the structure of subject, auxiliary verb plus adverb plus verb plus object, because verbs sometimes have these uh, auxiliary verbs coming before them. Sometimes they have an adverb attached to them before them. But this is the most basic order, SVO. Okay, SVO canonical. Okay, SVO positive, declarative, non-coordinate, non-subordinate, active voice, then canonical. Okay, let me see. And then I'm going to ask you, let me go there, the exercise. My family came for Christmas. We have discussed this and we have came to the conclusion that this clause, first of all, how many clauses do I have? This is the first question, because if I have two clauses, for sure it's non-canonical. Okay. Now in A, how many clauses do I have? Do I have only one clause? Or more than one? My family came for Christmas.
Just one.
Just one. Okay, so where's the verb?
To come.
To come. Okay, where's the subject?
My family.
And the object?
For Christmas.
For Christmas, which is the indirect object. Okay,
Mhm.
it's in fact the purpose of the coming. Okay, so my family came for Christmas. Does it follow the SVO order?
Can you come again? Sorry.
Does it follow the SVO order, subject, verb, object?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. Is it positive?
Yes.
Is it declarative?
Yes.
Yeah. Professor, what are declarative sentences? Declarative sentences normally give you a definition or talk about a routine. Is what you learn, for example, about simple present. The earth is round is declarative, okay? When you declare something. So my family came for Christmas is canonical. Now, this is the problematic item that we got stuck on last class, and I researched about it, and then I made a decision. This is the house that I bought. How many clauses, if more than one, I have here? Do I have here? This is the house that I bought. To know the number of clauses, what kind of clue can you use? How can you tell the number of clauses in a sentence?
I would separate them in relative pronouns, maybe.
This is a good clue. There's another one. You can identify the verbs. How many verbs do you have there? How many action cores do you have there? Or how many verb capsules do you have there?
Two verbs.
Yeah. First one, B, is. This is the house. If I tell you this is the house, picture the situation. We are going to some place. You are looking for a house to buy, and I'm a real estate agent, and I'll take you there and tell you this is the house. Do you understand it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In this context, yeah, I think yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now picture another situation. If you tell your friend, I bought a house, does your
I
friend
understand.
understand it?
Yes.
The pronoun that here is referring back to the house. So that I bought is I bought that. That what? The house? Okay, so the question that made me and probably made you as well confused is that I bought is referring back to the house. The that I bought part, okay, that I bought is qualifying, is restricting the meaning of the house. And then we made a consideration that I bought is a predicative complement. And this is true. It is a predicative complement. What is a predicative complement? Is some part of the sentence that refers back to some part of the sentence before it, of course, before it, because it refers back, to restrict its meaning, to give an explanation, to give details. So, but we should not confuse this with canonical or non-canonical dichotomy, okay? Because predicative complements are another clause inside the sentence. And to be canonical, we talk about canonical clauses, not canonical sentences. You see? Entenderam o que eu tentei passar para vocês? A gente fala de canonical clauses, nunca de canonical sentences. Não existe uma entidade chamada canonical sentences. E se eu cair nesse ato falho, me corrijam. É canonical clause. What we have sometimes is clausal sentences. Clausal sentences are sentences that have only one clause. And sometimes they are canonical because the clause is canonical, not the sentence. Here, do I have one clause or two clauses? If I have two verbs, I have two clauses. The second clause after that refers back to the house to say this is not any house, this is the house that I bought. This is the house. Which house? The one that I bought. So here, after that, I have a second clause. The first clause, this is the house. I need a context, you know? Without a context, I will never understand. This is the house. Which house? This is the house that I bought. So that is a coordinator. Now, is it possible for a canonical clause to be coordinated or subordinated? They are non-coordinate and non-subordinate. And that's why that I bought, because of the fact that this is a coordinated clause, or these are coordinated clauses. So this structure here is non-canonical, but I can turn this sentence, which has two clauses, into two independent canonical clauses. Yes, I have two clauses here. This is the house, clause number 1. That I bought, clause number 2. To be canonical, I need an SVC structure. Let's go to Word. Oops. So take a look at this. So first thing, we should split the clauses. This is the house, clause number 1. That I bought, clause number 2. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
What are the ideas? Sorry, it's automatic. Microsoft Word. So clause number 1. This is a house. I do not need to make any changes for it to be canonical. This equals the house. This is the house. So where is the subject in this is the house? Subjects can only be nouns or their substitutes. What are the substitutes of nouns? The demonstrative pronoun, this. The verb. So subject in red, okay? Is the verb. Let's paint it blue. And the object is the house. Let's paint it green. Now the problem comes in number 2. Clause number 2. That I bought. I come and tell you that I bought. Do you understand it? Without a context. That I bought. What is the question? We know that this that. What does that refer back to? What does the relative pronoun that imply? What is the idea it implies? What is it talking about?
The house.
The house. So that the house. The house I bought. We know that we can omit the that, but it's here. House that I bought, okay? So this that is referring back to the house. Let's omit it just to make things simpler. The house I bought is the same as saying I bought the house. Let's just reverse the order. Think of the house I bought. What is the subject? In number 2, where's the subject? The house I bought.
The house
is blue, for example. The house I bought is blue. Okay, the house is the subject. Or seems to be. What should I do with the I? Is the house really the subject? Or the order here is reversed? The house I bought is blue. The house I bought is big. Think of this. The subject in the house I bought, for example, extend this, is big. Consider now, where is the subject? Subject is this whole thing here. The house I bought is big. So this structure leads you to a misinterpretation of grammatical functions of the terms. So what should I do? First thing, why does it happen? Because this order here is not a canonical order. The house I bought. What? House I bought is a clause, but it's not a sentence. It does not bring meaning on its own. It will depend on this is the house that I bought. Okay. So the house I bought is big. The house I bought is in Turu. The house I bought, the house I bought does not have a meaning on its own. It depends on another clause. So let's manage this clause to make it independent. In other words, let's manage it to make it canonical. The house I bought. You should reverse the order here, rearrange the order here in number 2 to make it canonical. Every non-canonical clause can be transformed into a canonical clause. How will we manage this? We have a task in our hands. I bought the house. Can you find the subject now? And I bought the house. Do you have a complete package of information? I bought the house.
What house?
Yeah, you may ask which house, but probably you know what house I'm talking about. If I'm using the definite pronoun, you probably know which house I'm talking about because we have talked about it before. So what is the subject of the action?
I.
Subject. Bought is the verb, and the house happens to be the object, coincident with the object in number 1, just as we theorized when we said that refers back to the house. You see? Now this is canonical. Why? Because I have the subject, a verb, and the direct object, the house. You see? So that I bought was misleading. The house that I bought was a misleading structure, non-canonical, that might lead you to the confusion that the house would be the subject. The house is not the subject. The house is the object. The order of the clause is reversed. I bought the house, the subject. This structure is like object, subject, verb, not subject, verb, object. So I have to reverse it like this. And now I have two independent clauses, and both of them are canonical. Do you understand my point? This is the house. I bought the house. This is the house. Put this in order. I bought the house, period. Oops. Although in terms of style, it looks like repetitive, but you understand, I bought the house. And let's put another coordinator here. And this is the house. And this is it. Okay? Or let's just use periods. Independent clause, clausal sentence, in other words, followed by another clausal sentence. The effect is the same as here. This is the house that I bought. I bought the house, and this is the house. Entenderam ou confundir mais? Tudo que eu estou tentando explicar é que isso aqui é uma relative clause. Se ela é relative, ela estabelece uma relationship with what? With the house that I bought is referring back to the house. Okay? So, whenever I have coordination, whenever I have a that like this, one thing is to say that this is a predicative complement. This is true, okay? This is not an independent clause. This clause is here to refer back to an element in the first clause. But when I say this clause is here to refer back to an element in the first clause, the implication of this is that I have two clauses. And if I have two clauses, I will never have a canonical clause. I have one canonical clause plus another clause, which may be or not canonical. So I cannot say this structure here is a canonical clause. It is a sentence with two clauses, and the second one is non-canonical. The second one is non-canonical. And why is it non-canonical? Because it's coordinated. Is it clear?
Yes.
Really? This is, I think, item B is the most difficult one in this set of clauses or sentences. I cannot tell you if all of them are clauses. because if I do that, I'm giving you hints. Okay, some of them are sentences made up of two clauses. Some of them are sentences made up of one clause, and then we call them clausal sentences. Some of them are canonical and some are not. Let's take a look at C. Emma plays the piano very well. Do you think it's canonical? Go back to the structure of canonical clauses. Canonical clauses follow the structure. First thing you should keep in mind is subject, verb, complement, or subject, verb, object. Is this the case? Emma plays the piano very well. How many clauses do you have here?
One clause.
One clause. Where is the verb capsule? Basically, where's the verb? Because there's only one element in the verb capsule.
Plays.
Plays, okay? Whenever I talk to you about verb capsule, I'm talking about the verb and the auxiliary verbs working around it. And also, sometimes it's the case that the adverbs are just beside the verb. So the verb capsule is the verb and its satellites. Let's put it this way, okay? The verb sometimes has satellites orbiting it, okay? So Emma plays the piano very well. The subject for sure is Emma, okay? So is this declarative? Am I declaring
Yes.
something? Yeah. Do you see any elements for negative structure?
No, I don't see.
Passive voice?
No.
Subordination? Of course,
No.
there's not neither subordination nor coordination because there's only one clause. So the very first question is, how many clauses do I have? One. Okay, so I'll call it clausal sentence. Then you look if it's positive and declarative. If yes, it's the second and third good hint that this is a canonical clause. Look for passive voice. Didn't you find it? So another element to say it's canonical. What else? There's no coordination, no subordination. So what do you think, class? Is this item C canonical or non-canonical?
Canonical.
Very well. Now, D. Jesus. How brilliant she is. How many clauses do I have there? How many clauses do you think we have there in D?
One clause.
Yes, maybe because you are considering the number of verbs, right?
Alright.
We have only be, she is. But there are other elements for us to determine the boundaries, the limits of a clause. One of them is punctuation. So how many clauses do we have?
Two.
Two. Because Jesus, exclamation point, is one clause. A very specific kind of clause, which is non-canonical, because it is an interjection. Interjections are non-canonical. Ouch. Ouch is a clause, but it's non-canonical. There's no subject, There's no verb, there's no object. It's almost an onomatopoeia. I think it's onomatopoeia. I don't remember now, but I think it's onomatopoeia. Well, now we know that there are two clauses. This is enough for us to say it's non-canonical. But let's explore other elements that will reinforce our hypothesis. Consider the second clause. How brilliant she is. Let's imagine that the Jesus part or the wow part, imagine this is a wow or gosh, no matter. All these interjections are non-canonical. But consider just from here on, from how on, how brilliant she is, exclamation point. Is this affirmative? I mean, is it declarative? How brilliant she is. Am I declaring something? Oh, I didn't hear audio. It's like got cut down. Can you repeat?
Exclamative.
It's exclamative, and being exclamative is a good hint. It's non-canonical. Okay. How brilliant she is. Do we have a subject here? For sure do. But it's difficult to find the subject in this kind of order. How brilliant she is could be packaged more direct order. Still here? Hello? 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 So we uh, uh,
Gravando, professor.
I think we think they're giving. Deixa eu só fazer um teste aqui de velocidade para saber se a minha internet ou não. I'm doing some tests here, okay? Just a moment.
Agora dá para ouvir.
Uhum. Eu tô com 77 de down. Tô fazendo o teste do upload, que se a minha voz está cortando... Não, mas o upload tá bom. Tá com 70. Esses provedores domésticos aqui de bairro são melhores até que a net, claro. Bom, gente, voltando aqui, tá? Vocês me ouvem melhor agora, né? Deve ter sido um pico, alguma coisa no Meet, não sei. Vou voltar para o PowerPoint. Conseguem ver o PowerPoint?
Sim.
Ok, vamos voltar ao raciocínio aqui. A gente isolou a parte da interjeição, e está trabalhando só com how brilliant she is. My question is this the most usual order to provide this information? What is the information that you get from this part of the sentence? How brilliant she is. What is the essential information here? What's essential in this exclamation? A gente já discutiu que isso aqui, né, é uma exclamativa e que exclamativas não são canônicas, mas eu quero explorar outras características. What is essential here in how brilliant she is? What's the information you get about her?
She is brilliant.
Perfect. Now we have a canonical clause. She is brilliant. Subject, she is. Verb, brilliant. It's what she is. It's the direct object. Now, when I put the how and put the exclamation point and invert the order of the subject and the adjective, then I mess up the structure of the canonical clause. What you have done, I don't know who spoke to me. Who was it that spoke to me? Who are you? Delciane, when you said she is brilliant, what you have done intuitively was to turn a non-canonical clause into canonical. So it's non-canonical because there is an interjection. It's non-canonical because it's an exclamation. It is non-canonical because the order is not SVO. Basically, it's an exclamative. And in exclamatives, we have a structure in which we invert the subject and the adjective order. Now let's go to E. Sue is not happy with her performance. This is easy, canonical or non? First of all, is it a clausal sentence? What do you think? She isn't happy with her performance. Clausal or non-clausal sentence? Clausal or compound sentence, in other words. I guess you still hear me, yeah? Because at least the lights of my microphone are blinking here. I know you know. Is this a clausal sentence? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, because we have only one verb. In this case, the verb be, the verb to be. So, step one, okay. It can be canonical because it's a clausal sentence. So there's only one clause. Now, look at the canonical clause, or at the supposedly canonical clause that we want to find. Is it declarative? Is there a package of information behind this clause?
Yes, it's declarative.
Yeah. Now, okay, we have 2 points for being canonical, but now, is it positive?
No.
Yes, no. I mean, no. Yes, you were right. No, it's non-canonical because it's negative. Now, consider another sentence derived from this one. Sue is unhappy with her performance. Is it positive? Take
yes.
E. Yes, it's positive. Sue is not happy. Negative. Sue is unhappy. Positive. Okay. So is this a canonical clause?
No.
No,
Because it's negative.
because it's negative. If I said Sue is unhappy with her performance, let's move on with this. Sue is unhappy. Disconsider the not part. Sue is unhappy. So requisite number 3, okay. Sue is unhappy with her performance. Is it passive voice? Sue is
No.
no. So, okay, 4 points. Is it coordinated or subordinated? Sue is unhappy. I'm not talking about E. I'm talking about the other example from E. Sue is unhappy with her performance. Do you see coordination or subordination?
I think it's not.
Yeah, so if I changed is not happy for is unhappy, I would have a canonical clause. But since I have the not here, I have a non-canonical clause because it's negative. Is it clear for you? Can you confirm? Can you confirm you understand even on voice or in the chat? Can I move on with the exercises?
You can. It's understandable.
Okay, so let's go to F. What a shame you couldn't do it. De cara agora, canonical or non-canonical? Depois eu quero saber os porquês. Primeiro de cara. What a shame you couldn't do it. Canonical or non-canonical?
Non-canonical.
Non-canonical.
Non-canonical. We have plenty of elements to argue here that it's non-canonical. Element number 1. Argument number 1.
It's exclamative.
Exclamative. Argument number 2.
Negative.
Negative.
Negative. Okay. So I chose to mention exclamative, but in a hypothetical exam, if you put non-canonical and say negative, of course it would be right. Okay. Now, G. Again, canonical or non-canonical? Na bucha, tá? Depois vocês dizem por quê. Mike, do it as soon as possible. Canonical or non?
Non-canonical.
Why?
It's imperative. It's not declarative.
Yeah, it's a request, okay? And imperatives, especially when you have the apposition like Mike, comma, okay? Non-canonical, okay? Now, do it as soon as possible. Forget about Mike. Just consider, do it as soon as possible. Is it canonical or non? Forget Mike. Go from, I mean, let me get the pen. Eu ponho a mão na tela e penso que vocês estão vendo. Ai, meu Deus. Penso que eu estou na sala de aula. Forget Mike here. Work on this. Do it as soon as possible. Is it canonical now or non-canonical? It's non-canonical, okay? It's still an imperative.
Still imperative.
Não é porque eu não tenho o aposto. Tá? For example, publicity language, like the slogan for Nike, just do it. It's an imperative, so it's non-canonical. Now, to make it canonical, I'd have to make some changes in the clause, like I want you to do it as soon as possible. I want you to do it as soon as possible. Even so, I would have two clauses, two dependent clauses, okay? I want you to, okay? And the second clause, do it as soon as possible, in which the first depends on the second. And the first one would be canonical, okay? So being an imperative implies that it's non-canonical. Let me erase this slide. Okay, and finally, letter H, there's no money in my wallet. I just gave you an example of this. Canonical or non?
It is canonical.
Why? Looks like it's negative. Me convença.
Is affirmative, declarative.
It's declarative, it's affirmative. But I see a no there. You are my teacher now. Me prova que essa clause ela é affirmative, ela não é negative. Porque na minha cabeça aqui de falante de português, entendeu? Eu vejo um valor negativo. E aí, como você faz? Pode usar língua materna ou língua inglesa, do jeito que você quiser. Me convença que isso aí é uma afirmação. Como que vocês fariam? A pergunta não é só para o Vitor, tá? Para todos. Como vocês fariam isso? Porque no português, assim, tem não, a gente já pensa assim, negou. E a gente está acostumado a traduzir, né? Como diz o outro, in the foot of the letter, né? Ao pé da letra. Então, o no aqui dá a ideia do quê? De um não. Como faz? Sugestões. Vocês não precisam estar certos, vocês precisam ter ideias.
Porque o verbo principal da oração é o is. E ele está afirmando, apesar de ter um elemento negativo ali, ele não, acaba não entrando no... Como é que eu posso dizer isso?
Na estrutura
Exato.
da cápsula verbal.
Ele simplesmente está dizendo que não há dinheiro. O no money in my wallet.
Esse é o problema, é que quando a gente traduz, né? Aí tem não há dinheiro. Opa, não. Então é negativo. E no português é negativo. É que no inglês é there is. There is no money. No money é o objeto. Né? É o que não tem. É o objeto que não existe, que não está lá, mas que é referido. Você deu uma ótima aula universitária. Você se referiu à cápsula verbal, à estrutura do verbo, né? Isso é uma ótima aula para sintaxe em universidade. Você usou um monte de terminologia técnica, o que provavelmente você, né? Estamos numa aula universitária, então você está se preparando para um exame, um rigor formal que o curso universitário existe. No Instituto de Língua, para o aluno que não é estudante de letras, eu diria o seguinte: chama isso aqui de, sei lá, a coin. There's a coin in my wallet. Agora fica mais fácil de entender que é afirmativo, né? Que, olha eu misturando as línguas, que é afirmativo, não afirmativo. Isso não existe em português. Now you understand it's affirmative. There's a coin in my wallet. There's a bug in my wallet. There's an elephant in my wallet. A gente começa a ir pro absurdo. Ou seja, matematicamente falando, chama isso de X. Tem X in my wallet. There's X in my wallet. There's something. Né? Se preferir, chama de something. Chama toda a expressão de something. E chama isso aqui de somewhere. Vocês sabem o que é somewhere? What is somewhere in English?
Indefinite place.
Somewhere é o irmão de Manuel. Digna do pavê. Vamos lá.
Eu caí nessa tão fácil.
Somewhere is Manuel's brother. Ok, vamos lá, gente. Só para descontrair um pouco. Então, o conceito aqui é isso. Apesar de você ter... Agora vamos falar linguagem universitária de novo. apesar de você ter semanticamente algo que aponta para uma negatividade, para uma denegação, né, da inexistência de algo, estruturalmente, sintaticamente, o que se tem é uma estrutura declarativa afirmativa. There's no money in my wallet. Is it canonical or non-canonical? Vocês mantêm a hipótese primeira? Canonical or non? Can I click it? Canonical or non? What do you think?
The last one, canonical.
Canonical. Right. You are right. Okay. So I hope by the end of this exercise, you understood the structure of canonical clauses. It's never too much to mention, okay, that canonical clauses, let me go back here, are declarative, positive, main clauses, non-coordinate, and active, okay? These are the five characteristics, 5 clues to identify canonical clauses. First, a clause, a verb. As an extra, I'd say canonical clauses are never interjections. We are going to deal with interjections in a very, how can I say, we are going to almost ignore interjections. They are too simple, okay, in this course. So we are not going to consider them clauses, okay? They are interjections. They are a category put apart, okay? So interjections are non-canonical because they do not have a subject. So canonical clause, when you think of canonical clause, think of subject, verb, object with these characteristics here: declarative, positive, main clause, non-coordinate, active. So they are not interrogative, they are not passive, they are not negative, they are not coordinated, they are not subordinated, okay? You'd better memorize what they are not. So if you have any question about canonical clauses, I'd like to advance with the concept here. Can I? Do you have any question about what canonical clauses are? I'm considering sending you some exercise list on canonical clauses for you to practice, okay? Like the one we have just done. Let's go to the... Are you ready to talk about the parts of speech? Okay. Do you have any question about canonical clause? Agora vocês podem me perguntar, Ushua, para que a gente está vendo isso de canonical clause? Qual é a função disso? Eu devolvo a pergunta para vocês. Em análise sintática, when you are doing syntactic analysis, why is it important to know what a canonical clause is? And why is it important to know how to turn non-canonical clauses into canonical? Why do you think you are learning this? Just because it's going to be on the exam? For sure, it's not just because it's going to be in the exam. So, what is the importance of knowing how to distinguish canonical and non-canonical clause? What makes it relevant? As you know what a canonical clause is, and as you know how to identify a non-canonical clause and turn it into canonical, you can make complex sentences simpler and consequently easier to analyze. So when we go to syntactic analysis and you come across a very complex sentence, first of all, you can split it into clauses, and then you are going to check it if these clauses are canonical or not. And if you come across any non-canonical clause, by being able to turn them into canonical, you are able to do a more precise analysis, okay? That's why I'm giving you this talk about canonical and non-canonical properties of the clause, right? Is this clear? É sempre importante saber o porquê, né? De estarmos aprendendo alguma coisa. Né? This is not just because it's a concept of morphosyntax, of syntax that you should know. It's because it's a tool in your hands when doing analysis to solve, for example, problems in semantics, like ambiguity. Sometimes to solve ambiguity, we need syntactic analysis, okay? Now let me share the screen again. Let's talk about the parts of speech, okay? Now, we have talked about parts of speech before in morphology. When we were seeing morphemes and so on, I briefly introduced you parts of speech. What are the other technical names for parts of speech? Só uma dica para quem vai querer ser professor universitário, já vi muito isso aqui em concurso público, tá? Esse ponto aqui, né? Aquela famosa prova didática que você tem que fazer, uma delas é ensinar parts of speech. What are the parts of speech? By speech, you can change the word speech for language. What are the parts of language? Don't tell me language is split into 3 parts, okay? Language. No, it's not this. You are not Chaves, okay? Talking about music. What are parts of speech? What is the other technical name for parts of speech? Talk about parts of speech is the same as talk about grammatical classes, okay? About word classes. Is it better for you now if I talk about word classes?
Yes.
What are the word classes that you know? Randomly, just mention some.
Verbs,
Verbs, nouns,
adverbs, pronouns.
adverbs, pronouns, yes, okay? So there are different approaches to consider parts of speech in English, okay? Some of them, for example, treat interjections as a part of speech, as one of the parts of speech. Some other approaches don't. So this approach I'm showing you here is a possible approach. It's controversial, okay? And each approach has a theoretical foundation for considering English as having 8 parts of speech or 9 parts of speech. I'm sticking to the approach that considers 9 primary word classes in English or 9 parts of speech, okay? I'm sticking to this approach that will consider the parts of speech in English as determiners, adjectives, nouns, coordinators, adverbs, prepositions, verbs, and subordinators. Okay? For example, some approaches, some grammarians, some people who deal with the syntax of the language, they put together coordinators and subordinators together into one only part of speech, the category of conjunctions. Okay? That's why I say it's controversial, and I'm sticking to Michael Swan, okay, which is the author I chose to base these classes on. But it's a controversial approach. For example, I can get coordinators. Oops, is this the pen? Coordinators and subordinators, and put them together and call them conjunctions. On the other hand, those same syntaxists will call interjections one of the parts of speech, and we are putting them aside, okay? Right, so according to this approach that I'm choosing here, we have 9 primary word classes, 9 primary parts of speech, okay? And they are these: determinatives, like the dog barked. The is a determiner. A decorebinha do professor. Determiner. The e tudo que se assemelha a ele. The, a, some, ok? They are the... Quando a gente aprende isso aqui no livro 1 do inglês, a gente não aprende eles como determinative. A gente aprende eles com outro nome, né? They are articles, aren't they? The definite article, a indefinite article, an indefinite article for vowel sound. Is it okay? Some is a kind of article, okay? Some is a quantifier. There are authors in syntax that call some, any as quantifiers. And then we would have another part of speech. This approach puts them under the category of determinatives. Why do we call them determinative? Because they determine if it's a specific dog or if it's a generic sorny or a generic dog, a generic house, or the amount of milk. They are determining the object or the subject. They determine if it's specific or not, how much. That's why we call them determiners or determinative, the determinative category. Any question about determinatives? Articles and quantifiers.
No.
Okay. Can you give me another example of a determinant or of a determiner? In the sentence, for example, here. Pandemic is over. Oh, I wish so. Where is the determiner? In the clause, the pandemic is over. Where is the determiner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we could always ask which pandemic? Coronavirus pandemic, the H1N1 pandemic. Of course, the only pandemic we have had was the coronavirus one. The other one was an epidemic. But anyway, the articles and the quantifiers are the determinatives, okay? Now, the second, we are going to explore each part of speech in details, okay? Now, adjectives, okay, are also part of speech. Like he is very young, sore, I've got a sore knee, just like in the first example here. Sore is an adjective. It looks easy, okay? I won't go into details with the examples because you are very familiar with these word classes, okay? Just determinative because we used to know it by another technical name, okay? And coordinators and subordinators I'm going to explore with more detail. Now, the nouns, you know that the nouns will also put together their respective category. Pronouns. Do you agree that noun and pronoun, they play the same role in a sentence? Everywhere there is a noun, I can put a pronoun. Do you agree with this? The dog barked. It barked. Sue won easily. She won. I love you. Here we have pronouns. I could say, Zeuchoa loves his students. I love you. Nouns versus pronouns. So the second grouping here into categories is considering pronouns as a part of nouns. Okay, pronouns and nouns are packaged in the same group of words as parts, as the same part of speech. Okay, coordinators, which operate to coordinate two independent clauses, like we saw Kim and Pat. And is a coordinator because the sentence here is number one, we saw Kim. Number two, we saw Pat. We saw Kim and Pat. We have two clauses put together by the end, or the use of or as a coordinator. Hurry, or will be late. Okay, like you should. We have two canonical clauses behind this. You should hurry is one, okay, and we will be late is the second one. Hurry or will be late. Both have independent meanings. Hurry, although it's an exclamative, although it's an imperative, but I can turn it into the canonical clause. You should hurry, or you have to hurry. And the second one will be late. And I put them in a relationship of coordination. And it's cheap, but good. The but with the idea of opposition, the conjunction but operating as a coordinator of it's cheap versus it's good. Okay, so I have two clauses. Clause number one, it's cheap. Clause number two, it's good. And but, both of them have independent meanings, and but establishes the relationship of opposition. You are all familiar with this. Adverbs. Well, what is the function of an adverb? Adverb. What does it tell you? The naming of the category, the naming of the part of speech will tell a lot about its positioning. Where does the adverb come? Look at the examples. Where does the adverb come? What is the positioning of the adverbs? Adverbs like those ending in "ly," clearly, extremely, or those intensity adverbs like very. Where do they come? Beside the verb. That's why they are called adverbs. Okay? And adverbs have the... What is the function of an adverb? Vamos lá, gente. Em português, então, qual é a função de um advérbio? Para que serve um advérbio? Alguns exemplos do porquê usamos advérbios. Ô, povo calado. Eu ainda tô aqui? Ou eu caí?
Para demonstrar intensidade.
É uma das funções, demonstrar a intensidade de uma ação. Que mais?
É usado para modificar o verbo, para dar característica, falar a respeito.
Very good. Just like the terminatives operate to determine the subject or the object, to determine the quantity, to determine the specificity, adverbs operate to determine the verb, how it happens, when it happens, the intensity of its happening, and so on. Very good. So, and that's why they are called adverbs. Ad means beside. Comissão ad hoc. Aqueles que já submeteram um projeto de pesquisa sabem que os projetos vão para uma comissão ad hoc. O que é ad hoc? Uma comissão auxiliar, assessora, que trabalha ao lado de advérbio, ao lado do verbo. Okay, so next one, prepositions. Vamos voltar para a morfologia. Preposition. O que vai indicar uma preposition? It comes. O que o prefixo pré significa? Vocês fizeram isso na prova. Não pode falhar. Ele é temporal, espacial ou de intensidade? Pré é aquilo que antecede.
É temporal.
Ele é espacial, né? Ele pode ser espaço-temporal, na verdade. No caso aqui, ele é espacial porque nós estamos falando de uma estrutura frasal, né? Ele antecede o quê? Preposition. Something that comes before the position. Ele vai indicar a posição de alguma coisa ou a direção de alguma coisa, como preposições como into, que derivam da junção de duas outras preposições. In e to. Posição e direção. Then we have the junction into to indicate movement. Prepositions like in, from, or to, okay, are another part of speech. And they have been tricking students for quite a long time. The verb is another part of speech that we convention to call the action core. Yeah, the word to describe the action. We are going to question this notion of action because we have verbs like I am zeuchoa. Being zeuchoa is not an action. It's a state of being. Okay? Or I'm sad. There's no action in being sad. There's a state of being. So we have verbs that are actions and others which are state of being verbs. But this is another talk for another class, okay? And the subordinators. For those who prefer, for those who prefer, okay, we can group them into conjunctions. But the subordinators are those that establish the subordination between periods. Now, what's the difference between coordination and subordination? In coordination, the clauses have independent meaning. Each clause means on its own. Now, in subordination, one of the clauses is dependent from its relative clause, from its subordinated clause, okay? So one of the clauses, at least one of the clauses, has no meaning if not contextualized by the clause that comes after it, okay, or before it, okay? So subordinators like that or whether, in this example here, are considered another part of speech. And then we have a process, we have a numerous word classes that we should memorize. Now there's a hint to memorize this, okay? It's a silly hint, which I'm going to give you next class. It's a kind of stupid sentence that we can create, like a decoreba de cursinho, tá? A gente pode criar uma forma aqui de decorar essas word classes aqui nesse approach, in this approach here, okay? It will work for this approach. There are other memorization processes for other approaches, but I decided to disconsider interjections because interjections are also considered a word class, but they are not going to be explored here because they are too simple. They are one-word clauses, so let's forget about them for this course. They would be the, let's say, 3, 6, 7, 8, the 9th part of speech, okay? So we have 8 that we are going to explore. plus interjections, okay? So next class, I'll give you examples of each part of speech and how to memorize them and how to identify them in the context of sentences and clauses, right? It's almost 9:10. Do you have any question about parts of speech?
Ainda não.
Ainda não. Ainda não é uma ótima forma de descrever as dúvidas. Ok, gente, só para finalizar, eu vou parar já a gravação. Sobre os exames de vocês, eu corrigi,